interview you did over the summer, which is it's not a question of open versus closed, just like it's not a question of decentralized versus centralized. It's a question of where on that spectrum from which companies in which areas. You can use your Facebook identity to log into Tinder, for example, and you can bring your photos. That's not exhaustive interoperability, but you are providing some information. And in other cases, you're not. You announced yesterday that you were going to allow side loading on the Oculus devices, and that's an example in which
we already do. And we're just committing to make sure that we can continue.
Committed, yes.
Yeah.
And so with that regard, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, you're investing billions of dollars. I think you disclosed 10 billion plus in losses this year just from investments in this division. How do you think about the trade-off between building something for which a business case is required, if just to sustain investment, versus driving the metaverse GDP, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that this is a really fundamental question. I think that there are a couple of different philosophies. Well, there's probably more, but if you look at the way that mobile platforms have developed today, there's a certain philosophy behind it where you have phone makers who basically sell the phones for as much as possible at the high end, and then you have relatively high app store fees, and then there's of course a lack of choice because especially on the iOS there's not an alternative app store, and that I think has restricted the options for creation and made it so that a lot of things that I think people would want to create just aren't possible. I mean, I can speak to that from our firsthand experience. There have been a number of things that we've wanted to ship and that we've just been told no and have no kind of way to go do that. And of course, we've had some repeated struggles that have all been well documented. So I'm not saying anything new that's not public here, where we've tried to build certain tools for creators or for journalists to be able to have basically get all of the revenue from people paying them, and you have Apple or someone else is demanding a 30% fee, and I just think it would be much better if that money went to the developer, the creator or the journalists in those cases. So what I think you're seeing in all these cases though is basically there's a bunch of stuff that I think is limiting the overall, as you put it, GDP of the internet in this case, because I guess that was all sort of pre-metaverse, and you could and clearly the mobile internet has been very successful, and it's a big business for a lot of folks. So it's not like it hasn't done well, but I do think it could be even better. I think it could reach more people. It could enable more creators. More of the revenue could go to the creators, which I think would make it so that you could support millions of more jobs of people doing things that they really want to be doing instead of being kind of caught in other jobs that they might feel like they have to support themselves or their family. So I guess that's the approach that we want to take is we basically, instead of coming in with an approach of wanting to make this, wanting to charge as much as possible in different places, we want to charge as little as possible in order to grow the overall GDP of the metaverse. So, we basically build devices and we sell them either at cost or we subsidize them. And then, we build, we want to create choice in the ecosystem. So we're allowing side loading and apps to basically, link from PCs. So you don't have to buy them in the Quest store if you don't want to, and developers don't have to put them there if they don't want to. They still run on the devices. And we basically want to continue having creator tools that are as low cost as possible. And then the basic theory here is that if we think that if we can build this out, that we believe that the metaverse can reach 1 billion people, say in the next decade, and that there can be supported hundreds of billions of dollars of commerce, and that if that's the case, then even with relatively modest fees on the transactions that happen in our services, we think that could be a big business. The other side of that is that commerce and ads go together. They're really two sides of the same coin, because if people are doing